Good afternoon. So, after a night that was not successful, I would say, and also a morning which was extremely not successful, while I was in the shower, a guy from this apartment broke into it was locked, and he just broke the lock and started to throw things at me, and I just didn't react. Just waited in the shower, without even watching, looking at him for 20 minutes. And then after some time, when he stopped and he said, "I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you," I didn't even watch him. Just waited. And after about half an hour, I went out of the shower and called the police, and they didn't arrive. Anyway, not a successful morning and not a successful evening. Hopefully the fourth charge sheet, it will, you're probably going to feel it. If you don't feel it already, you will feel it very soon. Maybe it will calm. I do not expect anyone to move arms and legs. I understood that people of this world, especially in the intelligence service of this world, want the slave to be exactly where he is. And nothing will change the way you behave. But of course, as you really understand, there was a purge during the 80s, and there will be another purge now. Only now it will not be only limited to the people of the intelligence organization, but of course we'll start with that. Anyway, I would like to finish two. So first of all, I finished the video regarding this. I started to say yesterday that I understood during these travels. So what I understood during how like a year or a half, that the rescue must be done using force because of several reasons. And one of the reasons is that people that are under the boot of the Shabak, and it doesn't matter if they are Homo sapiens or Titans, people that they are totally under their control, like my ex-significant other, they will never believe anyone. Even if people will tell them, okay, you can go, you are free. You are no longer a slave, and maybe they will kind of win them from maybe addiction to one kind of antidote that they need to take every week or something like that, or they will never believe anyone, and they will always say, we want to stay exactly where we are, we don't want to go. These people can only be rescued by force, because they cannot believe anyone. They cannot believe anyone that anyone will actually protect them wherever they will go. And they don't think that there is any place on earth that is safe for them, and they are correct. Because if people don't want to move arms and legs to protect them, they will not protect them in any places wherever they will be. And these people, it doesn't matter if they're Titans or Homo sapiens, they already have experience with the Israelis, and they know that they can go anywhere on the planet and just kidnap them from wherever they are, because it already happened to them. And it can be true both to Titan females and to Homo sapiens. It's the same situation. They know that wherever they are on the planet, if they are not protected by force, Israelis can just go there and kidnap them from the place using all sorts of ways. And presumably after they will do it, they will take their vengeance, and they will treat them much more horribly. It's like Ramsey from Game of Thrones, from the series, from the TV series. That he kind of he lets Theon escape, and then he recaptures him. So after that, he doesn't even think about escaping, because he already knows that even if he escapes, they can bring him back and even mutilate him and even torture him even more. So they will not try to escape, because they will never believe that it's possible. And they're actually correct, because if people abroad do not move arms and legs to get them out of prison, if they only move their mouths and tongues, it's certain that wherever they are in the world, the Israelis will just get them back, using whatever force that they used on the first place to get them from there. Because these people already were abroad and were brought to Israel by all sorts of manipulations and using force or using psychological conditioning or all sorts of methods. So they will never leave Israel without the intervention of force. They will never do it, and they will always say, we like it just where we are. And it will actually, and this is the rational way to go from, because from their perspective, they know that they will only be brought back to Israel, and they will their torture will only become even more harsh and cruel. So that's another reason why the only way to rescue me and my daughters from this hell is using force. And that's why until foreign powers, foreign nations will show arms and legs inside of Israel, until this happens, and it doesn't happen, as you know, the earth will be fried until there will be no more humans. Today I will work on the 5th Starship, and or either today or tomorrow it's going to be smaller one, so probably it doesn't take me a lot of time, but it's a new design which will be more delicate, so perhaps I'll need to work more on the delicate stack, clay issue carving, so I might only finish it tomorrow, but this week, the 5th one will certainly enter into position, and I'm certain that when all the 5 are fine years, it's a game over for like all humanity, and I'm happy for that. Now, another thing that I understood that should be said is that, as I said, the only way for me to get out of here is using the force of like foreign powers, and that the only foreign power that can do it is China, because I understood that if the United States would have wanted to do it, it would have done it long ago, and that they want me exactly where they are. And I've spoken about it a lot. That that they paid the Nazis. Like all the Nazis that they see right here, all of them are in the payroll of the Americans. And this was true in Shoam as well. Like in the 4 years that I lived in Shoam, and I understood it back then. I even talked about it back then. Like it's not a new issue. That the greatest inquisitors, the greatest torture of mine are always paid by the Americans. It's not a new issue at all. It's a guy like that for years, and I understand it for years, and spoke about it plainly. The Americans just want me exactly where I am, because they want me under the boot of some kind of power. They don't want me to have any freedom, because they want to get the stuff from me like a farm animal, and they prefer to do it not on American soil, because there is Congress there, and laws, and Supreme Court, and progressive movements, and woke movements, and in general there is a constitution that sometimes you should think about. So it's better to keep the slave or the farm animal in a place where all these things do not exist, like Israel, which, de facto, is, as I said many times, the 51st state of the United States, only that the Constitution does not apply, the Congress does not apply, and there are no civil rights, and you can do whatever you want. So that's why they keep me here, Americans. That's it. This is the United States. And of course, we will never forgive the Americans. We will change the geography of the United States completely. Like the real geography, it will not be even look the same on the map. They will, and from like technological perspective, they are going back at the latest to the 18th century. We will never forgive the United States. We see them as a direct managers of the situation, and the direct authority that, is responsible for my torture, and we will never forgive them. We will never forgive them. What I also understood, that it's not that the Europeans will not intervene because of 2 reasons. First, they don't really care. They just, delegated, this issue to be like handled by the Americans, even though they are part of the slave trade and they also consume the tea. But they just, certainly in English, but they just delegated that to the Americans, which is a great thing. Because you cannot commit crimes in humongous proportions and just say the American are handling it. No, you cannot do it. But also this is the fact of the situation, and also I understood that the Europeans, they don't want they don't want to, as a philosophy, they don't want to use force at all. They want the force to be used by the Americans, and this does not apply only to my situation and the Titan subjugation issue. This is, in general, this is correct for many decades now. They kind of made a deal, like a kind of unwritten deal with the United States, that the United States, they build like carriers and put so much money in like kind of war machines and military spending, and and presumably they become pacifists, and they kind of try to minimize spending on military, and even they sometimes ridicule the Americans for their gun culture, but at the same time they reap the benefits of this gun culture and weapon industry and these forces, because all these forces, they are not only used to protect like American, culture and values around the planet, as sometimes they say, but they are used to protect American financial interests all around the world. This is not a new issue, but these interests are also combined with European interests, certainly West European interests. So they just reap the benefits of this kind of a culture of violence and weaponry, without them need to like put in no effort. And why do the Americans agree for that? First of all, they not always agree with it. Like, I mean, famously, I mean, President Trump, like, I mean, was very, like, had, like, a negative, I mean, kind of like a grudge against Europeans, like, they, like, kind of, like, they do not, like, put like, money, like, to be part of this kind of, like, international gun culture. And I estimate that this was not a show, that, I mean, he really felt that way. That, I mean, yes, he presented an opinion within the American society that he's not really cool with the fact that, I mean, they should like they should be the violent barbarians and put all the money and efforts and sometimes life like actual soldiers, I mean, to maintain this kind of like a violent culture that to protect the interests of the West, and like while the Europeans, I mean, don't put, I mean, their share in that. My understanding is that I mean, it was serious. Like, I mean, Trump really like, felt that way, and that, I mean, that probably it's kind of like, I mean, it's a valid like opinion within America, like American society. That, I mean, that the Europeans, like, I mean, they get a lot of this kind of like arrangement, and they don't put like efforts. So so first of all, the Americans are not completely as fine with this situation, but in general, the Americans, for a long time, it wasn't always, I mean, the American view, certainly not in until the First World War, and certainly even not after that. But, I mean, during the last 60 or 70 years, a relatively new kind of like paradigm inside the American society started to appear, and it's now the dominating, like I would say, kind of like agenda in Washington, and it's true both for Republicans and Democrats, that, I mean, the financial interest of the American society is best preserved by hegemony of the Americans, like all around the world. That, I mean, that they must kind of like, I mean, be everywhere. So I mean, the spy networks, I mean, should like be present like everywhere, and I mean, then it should have like always like tremendous amount of like the best, I mean, like by far the best and like biggest and strongest carriers, like, I mean, and like aircraft carriers and carrier groups, and like, I mean, and the military should be like tremendously more, like, I mean, advanced than anyone else. And this all is part of a paradigm that was not classically American, but it started to appear after the First World War and become much stronger in the last 50, 60, 70 years. That's the way to protect American financial interests, by, I mean, military and espionage presence all around the world. In some way, they are like the new Soviets, I would say. They became the new Soviets. So they also like to make all the decisions. They like to have the final authority on all the like international and interplanetary issues. So that's why, I mean, they are kind of like okay with the fact that, I mean, the Europeans are kind of like slacking off, or a little bit of parasitic in this arrangement, because, I mean, it's widely known that the Europeans, I mean, on one hand, they enjoy this kind of like, I mean, this gun culture, but they do not put their share, and they even sometimes they I mean, they have the nerve to, like, I mean, to take a kind of like, I mean, a presumably moral superior position, that, I mean, oh, these Americans with their gun culture, I mean, we don't like gun. We don't use, I mean, it's so, I mean, in our place, even the police don't have guns, only like, I mean, clubs, and we are certainly against it, I mean, and all this kind of like NRA thing and Second Amendment, it's so barbaric, I mean, no, we in Europe, we are past all this. So yeah, I mean, they have the nerve like to speak along those lines while they reap the benefit of this gun culture. In any case, I understood that the white man will never be my salvation. None of them, not the Europeans, nor the Americans. That the only people that can actually have the power and the incentive to rescue me and my daughters, and also salvage some kind of humanity before the world is destroyed, are the Chinese. Now, the biggest problem with the Chinese, and I understood it long ago, is that they don't care enough about Israel. I mean, from their perspective, I mean, Israel is like, I mean, a little bug, and they are right. I mean, there is some kind of like, I mean, I can understand that, like, I mean, in the general sense, I mean, yes, the Chinese are huge and so many people, and like, I mean, they have, I mean, so many like huge problems, and like, I know, and from their perspective, Israel is a little cockroach. But on the same time, they did not have the moral right to ignore the fact that it's not Israel that is the problem here, but the problem is Venus, another planet. And they cannot close their eyes to the fact that there is another planet involved, and that I mean, the humanity is using Israel to subjugate another planet. So the problem is not the cockroach, which is Israel. The problem is the planet, which is almost as big as Earth, which is called Venus. And the Chinese didn't have historically the rights like to ignore these facts. So yeah, of course, the Chinese are not, I mean, as guilty as the white people, like, of course, and that's why I that's my wish for a long time now. I said all that I want to move to Hong Kong with my daughters, or to another place in China. That's my wish, and it still is my wish, and that's the only place where I think that I will be able to live, and to actually not be afraid to myself or to my daughters. But at the same time, so of course the Chinese are not as guilty as the others, and for other reasons as well that I spoke about in the past. That, I mean, they carry much less guilt than the other, but they have some kind of like, they can, they as well, I mean, they share the sin of humanity in the fact that they didn't care, I mean, enough about what's going on. I mean, they couldn't like close, I mean, the fact that Israel is just a little cockroach, I mean, is again, it's not the determining factor. The problem is not Israel, the problem is Venus. It's another planet. And they cannot say, we don't care about it at all, we just, I mean, it's not our business. No, you don't have a right to say it. I mean, you are big, you are many people, you are strong, like a strong like player in this world, and you want to be even like, I mean, stronger, and actually, I mean, you have all the right to do so. I mean, why should only the white men have all the benefits of like, I mean, modern economy? I mean, you should, I mean, why should you always like be the manufacturers, and and there should be also always be the consumers? I mean, rightly so. I mean, you want more. I mean, you want like to have like more equal share of like of kind of the commodities and luxuries of that, I mean, are available by the modern world. I mean, this is perfectly understandable, and I can sympathize with that. But at the same time, you cannot, I mean, you cannot close your eyes to the things that are happening, like, I mean, with regards to another species. You cannot say it's I mean, we don't care, we don't know. I mean, Israel is just a cockroach, we don't know what's going on over there. Again, the problem is not Israel, the problem is Venus. So yes, the Chinese are also, I mean, they share this kind of like burden of guilt, and they will also be punished, but to a much lesser extent than Europe and the United States. Tremendously less extent. Okay, so soon I will hold another video, actually 2 videos regarding the robots. I decided to have another part because a recent experiment actually reminded me that, I mean, I wasn't, that there is also another thing that I should speak about, that is very, very basic regarding the nature of the robots, and this belongs in the robot series. So I will speak about that in the 8th part, and the 9th part I will speak about the phenomenon of the wizard, and the issue with sexuality and sexual disease and diseases in general, and more like on things that are relevant to the perception of the neros and the perception of the robots in our era, which is kind of like the latest era, what I call the post-Soviet era of the Titan subjugation.